So what is that beautifully seductive, magnetic, sometimes intangible, elusive dance between love and desire? This full moon in Aries is that primal desire. The full moon in Aries is coming to conjunct Chiron in Aries. It's opposing the Sun and Mercury in Libra. And that Aries-Libra axis is love and desire. It is the relationship axis. And it highlights the very primal needs that we all have to have that loving connection, to have that like co-creation and the intimacy that we experience when we feel seen and heard and felt and secure. And also that desire to feel wanted, that desire to want and to hunt and to go after, that desire for newness and spontaneity and adventure, that desire to push past our edges and to self-actualize and realize and discover anew. So this axis between Aries and Libra really contain the mysteries between love and desire. So as we approach this full moon, I really want to take the time to like uncover and excavate these deep primal desires of love and security and intimacy, of passion and desire and eros, and to unveil the ways in which these polarities, these polarizing archetypes of Aries and Libra are actually like intimately and intricately linked. Like this love and desire, although they are polarizing forces, they are also intimately woven together. So in that way of understanding the like differences and the spectrum of which we find these polarizing forces inside of us, and to be able to actually embody not just the Aries or not just the Libra, it gives us this opportunity to actually find ways in which we can feed that desire. We can feed that self-confidence and that inner fire, that inner desire to seek and to do and to create, and also that desire to be deeply held and nourished and to like collaborate and to again feel loved and secure. And we also have another powerful component to this opposition. Saturn is coming into square, not only Aries, but Libra. So we have the full moon and Chiron conjuncting in Aries. We have the Sun and Mercury in Libra, and then we have Saturn coming in Capricorn to square it all. Saturn, who is coming into square both of these polarities. With this T-square, it's really powerful because we not only have these polarizing opposites that need to be individually liberated and simultaneously harmonized and integrated to be able to actually access the power of each one of those medicines inside of these archetypes. And Saturn is coming to square both of these, which actually becomes the counterpoint which both of these archetypes can come into their fullness and can come into their mastery and into their higher octaves. So in this full moon, this is a time of testing relationships, with Saturn coming to test and be that, you know, that external authority kind of like challenging, like, are you in your internal authority? Like, is your relationship balanced? Are you in your freedom and in your independence? And like, is your rebellions and your desires and your fire being fed and nourished? And how is that sustaining and thriving and connecting inside of a relationship, inside of your work, inside of your partnership, inside of your sexually intimate, dynamic world? How are these deep and primal, sometimes subconscious and repressed, like needs that are rising to the surface with this like vitality and this eros of Mars, and with this eros of the moon like magnifying it up and drawing it up, of the Aryan fire, of like me and my, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is what I deserve, this is what I desire and long for, and this is the fire that needs to be freed and liberated. How do we liberate that fire in a good way? Like, Saturn is there to test it. Libra is there to be like, connect it, build the bridge. And then we have the last and final squares of Uranus and Mars there to truly liberate that which we are here to free ourselves of. All of these things are culminating to this full moon in Aries. It's like time to liberate. It's time to like let go of the old and rise up into the new. Bring those deep subconscious desires of who you are in to the newness of a relationship. Let the old patterns die and let them go, and allow yourself and your relationships to be renewed. And there is also Venus still traveling, like making her way through her shadow period in Scorpio. Like, allow your deep subconscious desires, allow those passions that have been suppressed, those parts of us that like desire more in our sex, that desire more in our relationships, that desire more in our finances, in our work, and in our lives. Allow these like uncomfortably like dark taboo things to arise, and be aware of that tendency of sabotage and that tendency of blame, because where we are sabotaging and blaming and shaming, we are not transcending, we are not transforming it. And so this is hyper critical time to like let those uncomfortable blockages and those subconscious needs, let them be spoken to, but call yourself into accountability with how you do it. How do we bring up that need for love and desire without shaming our partners, without shaming ourselves? Like, let's talk about that. And so now I'd like to zoom in a little bit on these individual transits so that we can access this opportunity to experience that love and desire, like inside of a relationship over long periods of time, and just start to see where are these patterns arising inside of us over this next week, and how can we move into it in a more intentional way. First of all, the full moon in Aries is like a magnifying lens on like our needs. Or like the Aries is like me and my and I want. And this is, like I said, primal desire. It needs freedom, it needs independence, it wants life force energy, it wants excitement, you know? And so this is the time where like these deep desires of things that we've been kind of bored in, things that we've been stuck in, are gonna be like coming up to the surface. And with Chiron being there in Aries, it really highlights these parts of us where our fire has been suppressed, where our fire and our confidence and our desire is like, where is our desire? I don't know. Where is our direction? I don't know. When I speak to clients that have like Chiron in Aries, or the South Node in the first house, or these places where their Aries archetype has been wounded, or their Mars has been like wounded or really squared in some way, it really challenges their ability to like know where they want to go, to like speak and be excited about what they want. You know, the fire is like that thing that's like, ooh, I feel that, I want it, ooh, I want to do that, ooh, I like that, you know? I'm an Aries, so it's like so much of me is like expressing fire. At like what I look for in people is like, do you have fire? Where's your excitement? Where's your life force energy? Can you sustain and thrive inside of that, or is it like depleted and you're needing mine, you know, for it? So when we're dealing with the moon, which represents our emotions and these like deep subconscious feelings arising about freedom and about sovereignty and about the me and the my, and with Chiron right there, it's like, okay, all of our wounds or challenges around that, especially because Saturn is also squaring it, is like, where do we feel suppressed? Where do we feel blocked or hindered in our expression, in our freedom to discover, in our like ability to move in the world, you know, in our ability to feel that excitement, and again that like desire and that eroticism, that eros, you know? And this really touches on our self-confidence and our ability to digest and our ability to create. And so if we find ourselves kind of feeling that directionless experience, or that that feeling of like anger and frustration and rage even, because if Aries is suppressed, if that need of like is happening, like I picture Aries as like, I don't do this, and the parents like, no, shut down, you know, it's like, oh, and sometimes it'll be like, no, and we push away, and we get frustrated, and we rebel, and we do all these things, however we react, we fight back, or it's like, oh, and our solar plexus, our like sacral chakra, our energy gets like shut down, it gets depleted, and we lose even the ability to like say like, or even tap into, even know what we want. And so however you deal with that, you're gonna see a more magnification lens upon that now, of like, have you been suppressing your fire? Have you been sharing your deep like primal needs? Are you in touch with what you want and what you desire? Like, do you let these things come out? Do you allow yourself to even feel them yourself? And if you're the one that's pushing back and fighting back, how can you take responsibility to like create containers, to like speak it in a more responsible way? And we'll get into that more when we speak about Saturn and why that Saturn in Capricorn is squaring the Aries. Is squaring that part of us that needs freedom and that wants to like actualize and like break free, and it needs to like be free in order to self-discover and self-actualize. And so how those things square each other is a really powerful journey about actually taking responsibility for that Aries of like, are you able to speak your needs and draw people into you while you simultaneously create the container for your freedom, the container for your needs and your fire to be fed? Like, are you blaming and shaming and pushing back and cutting off in order to like feed that fire in like these sporadic or like taboo or like aggressive ways? Or are you being like responsible and assertive and like knowing that your fire deserves to be fed, and you can move from that knowingness and move from that like sovereign like confidence? And moving to the Sun and Mercury and Libra, like Mercury rules our mind and the way that we communicate and what we have like intellectual energy for. The Sun rules that like fuel, what we have passion for. Like we have a desire right now, mentally and like egoically and with our fuel, we have this desire to create harmony and connection. And we have a desire to like dig into like the relationship dynamic. So with these like Aryan desires of freedom and like individuality and my needs coming up, we also have this other part of us that like wants harmony and that like wants connection and security and intimacy. And so the dance between this, and why I said it rules relationships and it rules that love and that desire, is that if you're too much in your Libra, then we become codependent. Then we shove our needs down and we lose sight of like what we want because we are overwhelmed by the other. We're overwhelmed by their world, by their emotions, and by the need to even want to meet those needs. And if you're in your Aries, like too much in your Aries and in its excess, then you're like, I want, and I'm selfish and I'm brash and I'm just doing it and I'm not gonna tell you about it, or I'm just gonna do it even if it hurts you or even if it like throws you off or, you know, whatever. It just becomes this really separating and pushing back sort of thing so that it can get that freedom. And so how I think that, you know, Saturn coming in to square this is like Saturn is that external authority. I said it's that tester coming in to say like, okay, Saturn in Capricorn is like, can you take the responsibility for your needs? Can you take the responsibility for your freedom, for your fire, and for your relationship? Like, can you use your inner, what I call courtier, to like draw those people into you and to like leave the space? And that's why I think Aries and Libra is this balance between love and desire, is because what I imagine is like love is Libra and it's like love you. I'm gonna draw you into me, and I'm gonna care about what you feel and how I affect you. And the Aries is like, ooh, I'm in me. I'm doing my thing. Like, this is feeding my fire. I'm gonna go here. And the other is like, ooh, you're so sexy when you're in your fire. Ooh, I see you as the other, and now I want you, you know? And Aries is also like, okay, here's my boundaries. I need to go. But how we could do that, this is what I learned, you know, by the most seductive, sexy woman in the world. She told me, she's like, instead of like pushing away to like separate or to like have space, like in a way closing my heart and like, okay, I need to go do my thing, like close and move away. Instead, like draw in and then let the tension be felt, let the separation be felt with an open heart, with that connection still in place, and then be like, okay, I'm gonna go do my thing now, and then move from there. And so it's like you draw the hearts together, but you keep that spaciousness. You know, it's like you don't fully merge. You know, there's maybe a time for that merging and a time for that union and security, but we have to create that sovereign pillar and that sovereign dance between the spaciousness and that powerful spectrum between Aries and Libra is that sexy place of like tension. It's that sexy place of like boundaries and assertiveness and like, let me see you from afar and let me tend my own heart and my own fire and my own being to channel this erotic desire for you, and then go and then like experience that, you know, but do it in a way that doesn't chop off, separate, push away, isolate, or sabotage. Because with these strong desires for our needs to be met, especially when they're like, oh God, you're gonna get upset or something like that, and you're gonna overwhelm me with your feelings, you know, these are the reasons that we wanna like push away these needs, you know, or we wanna hide them for the other, or we wanna separate from the other, or blame them for them not being met. And so that's where Saturn is like, hey, that's not being responsible. That's not being in your inner authorship at all times. So I really encourage us now to really tap into like that inner Aries, that inner fire, those deep desires and like arrows. Like what, like tap in to your dantian, that place right below your belly button. It's this place in Chinese medicine known as the inner sun. It's where your fire, your sexuality, your creativity, your potential energy that feeds the rest of your body, it resides there. So drop into that space and touch into like what feeds that fire, what foods feed that fire, what foods suppress that fire, what emotions feed, what situations feed, what people feed, and notice when it's being suppressed. And how can you be that like responsible in like kindling and tending your own inner flame and drawing your relationships into that space to cultivate that fire and to like cultivate that like desire and that separation of sexy tension while simultaneously being connected, you know. And I also really want to bring up the Mars and Uranus square. It's the third of the final squares. And so it adds an extra like volatility, an extra like intensity around this like Aries energy coming up, because Aries is ruled by Mars and it is fire. Like I said, it is that primal desire. And so when Mars is also in Aquarius and it's being squared by Uranus, it's like volcanic eruptions, it's electrical fires, it's like earth shaking, like weather explosions. And like on an emotional level, it's like emotional weather alert, you know, of like high intensity voltage of like what I want, what I need to be free of, like feeling those blockages and like ready to break free. But like how we do that is hyper crucial. And like this cycle started in mid-May, and it brought us into all these eclipses in the summer. So we have been working on these things. And so a lot of what will be arising here in this full moon are things that came up in mid-May into all the summer. But we're not back in the same place. Like we're not all the way back there. This is another layer of that spiral. And in fact, it's that like last layer. It's the culminating of that. And so it's the ultimate time now to like, how do we create this actual freedom and liberation from these patterns that keep us bound and stuck from like, you know, opening into that Leo heart, from opening into that like pure, powerful expression of our creativity and who we are. And like, let that also, you know, the heart and the fire, the heart and the sexuality, like touch in with where we are. Like our sexuality like tells it all. It is the microcosm of our macrocosm. And so these are powerful energies to like be arising inside of our sexual intimacy. And with Venus in Scorpio, like in her shadow period, bringing up these deep subconscious desires of like alchemical, like Scorpio is like taboo. I want to like go to the deep dark depths with you. I want like these deep subconscious and like shamed and suppressed and like dirty, and like I want these desires met. And this is all going to be coming out with like a force of like chaos and tantrums and like, you know, intense, maybe even wrathful and rageful feminine, of like frustration and like, fuck, I've been waiting and I may have been suppressing forever, but I want it now. And so let that volcano of desire like rise up from the subconscious with this full moon. Like allow it to rise, but like, hey, let's really make sure that we are not shaming and destroying our relationships in the process, and that we are not sabotaging our own needs from being met, but that we were giving ourselves a space to like, how do we channel this powerful energy? How do we allow it to move in a way that really serves us? And I just want to say, listen to Brené Brown about shame. Listen to Esther Perel about love and desire. She's really inspired a lot for me here. I've been reading like and watching all of her videos, TED Talks and Audible. She's brilliant, and she really starts to like uncover some of these mythos that we've culturally created about love and desire and some of their nuances. So with all of that, I really just encourage you to tap in to your own inner fire and tap in to those parts of you that desire something new, that desire something that really feeds that independence and that sovereignty and your own, what I call inner dragon woman. And for the men, of course, like dragon men, like whatever it feels when you tap into that aliveness, like find a way to feed that. Find a way to like draw that forth inside of you, and then tap into your desire to bring that into your relationships. Like find the places where you sabotage that and be real with yourself with that. And be gentle and graceful with yourself. And if you're in a relationship with your partner, like hold good space for each other. Like allow these eruptions to happen, but really allow for your heart and your desires to be felt inside of that. And be aware of shame and sabotage. And for those of you that are interested in diving into your own inner fire and like liberating that inner dragon inside of you and like learning how to bring that forth inside of a relationship without shaming yourself or your lover, give me a call, email me. I love to work with our own inner fire and sexuality, and like liberating that creativity and bringing it inside of our relationships, working with the blockages that come up and the shames that come up, and like drawing us into a process of liberating that and finding ways to rewrite those spells and those stories. I do that online, I do it in person, and here in Mexico, I have personal coaching, retreats, and trainings to really bring that into the body and into the psyche in a way that weaves astrology, embodiment, and emotional erotic intelligence together. So blessings on this full moon journey, and may you tap into that deep erotic nature and that primal desire, and may you find the way to bridge it into the hearts of you and your relationships.